Look, I need you to understand something right from the start. When I first saw Tara step off that transport shuttle, I laughed. Actually laughed? Not out loud, of course, because I am a professional diplomatic envoy for the Keltharan Collective, and we do not mock our potential trade partners. But inside? Oh, inside I was howling. She was so small, I mean, truly, genuinely, almost comically small. She stood maybe 1.6 meters tall, which put her at chest height to me, and I am considered short among my people. Her frame looked like it might snap if someone breathed on her too hard. Pale skin, dark hair pulled back in some sort of functional knot, and these tiny little hands that she kept clasping in front of her like she was nervous. Her clothing was simple, practical, nothing like the ornate diplomatic robes that Dolvin wore or the crystalline armor plating that the Bulkan delegates favored. Humans. This was humanity's grand representative? This soft, squishy, fragile-looking creature? "Welcome to Orbital Station Fortress Pinnacle," I said, extending my primary greeting appendage. The translator implant in my neck converted my words into her language automatically. "I am Vex, and I will be facilitating today's preliminary trade discussions." Tara smiled. Actually smiled. Like she was genuinely happy to be here in this cold industrial station floating in the middle of nowhere. "Thank you so much for having me. I have been looking forward to this meeting for weeks." Her voice was warm, friendly, nothing at all like the harsh, guttural tones of the warrior races or the melodic complexity of the higher intelligence species. Just pleasant. Disarming, even. Dolvin appeared beside me, his 4 eyes blinking in sequence as he assessed the human. "We have prepared Conference Hall 7 for our discussions. I trust your journey was acceptable?" "Long, but comfortable enough," Tara replied, falling into step between us as we walked through the station's main corridor. "Your station is impressive. The gravitational stabilizers must be incredibly sophisticated to accommodate so many different species." I glanced at Dolvin. The human had done her homework, at least. Most species did not even think about gravitational accommodation. They simply assumed every station would be calibrated to their comfort. "We maintain a standard 0.85 gravities in common areas," Dolvin explained. "It represents a comfortable middle ground for most species." "Most civilized species," I added, unable to help myself. "Those of us who evolved on reasonable worlds anyway." Tara tilted her head slightly, and for just a moment, I thought I saw something flicker in her eyes. Amusement, maybe? Reasonable is such a subjective term, isn't it? We continued through the station, passing various species going about their business. A cluster of frilled traders argued over cargo manifests near Docking Bay 3. Bulkan engineers worked on a malfunctioning atmospheric processor, their thick hides proof against the steam that would have boiled my skin off. A tiny Quillic scurried past, chirping something about lunch appointments. The station was a hub of activity, a neutral meeting ground where a dozen different civilizations could interact without the complications of planetary sovereignty. It was also, I will admit, a testament to engineering brilliance. Keeping this many different environmental needs balanced was no small feat. Conference Hall 7 was situated in the station's diplomatic wing, a section designed specifically for delicate negotiations. We had barely entered when Dolvin's communication device began shrieking. "All personnel, immediate alert. Structural failure in Docking Bay 5. Repeat, structural failure in Docking Bay 5. Emergency response teams report immediately." Dolvin's eyes widened. "That is adjacent to our position. The cargo hauler from Terminus 6 was scheduled to dock there within the hour." "It already docked." came a panicked voice over the open channel. "The mooring clamps failed during the docking sequence. Half the bay is collapsed. We have multiple casualties trapped under debris." I felt my blood chill. Docking Bay 5 was massive, designed to handle industrial freighters. If the structure there had collapsed, we were talking about tons of metal, support beams, cargo containers, all of it coming down on whoever had been in the wrong place at the wrong time. Tara was already moving, not running exactly, but walking with sudden purpose toward the exit. "Which direction?" she asked, her voice sharp, focused. "You should remain here where it is safe," I said, reaching for her arm to stop her. "Emergency teams will handle this." She looked at my hand on her arm, then up at my face. "Which direction, Vex?" Something in her tone made me let go. "Port corridor, 300 meters, then down 2 levels." She nodded once and took off at a sprint that frankly shocked me. For something so small, she moved fast. Really fast. Dolphin and I exchanged glances and then followed, though we could not hope to match her pace. By the time we reached Docking Bay 5, the scene was chaos. The bay doors were twisted, hanging at wrong angles. A support beam the size of a transport shuttle had fallen across the main platform, pinning down at least 4 beings that I could see. Smoke filled the air, and emergency klaxons wailed loud enough to hurt my hearing membranes. "Get back!" Ulmer, the station security chief, was shouting at a crowd of onlookers. His tentacles waved frantically. "The structure is unstable. One more shift and the entire section could go." I spotted Nia, a frilled trader I had worked with before, trapped beneath what looked like a cargo container. Her breathing was labored, her scales turning the pale color that indicated shock. Beside her, Gorth, a Bulkon engineer, was pinned by a beam across his midsection, and his thick hide was already showing stress fractures. A small form that I realized was Pip, a Quillix interpreter, lay motionless under a sheet of twisted metal plating. "The lifting equipment is 3 levels away," one of the emergency responders was shouting. "We will never get it here in time." Tara walked right past them. "Miss, you cannot go in there." Ulmer extended a tentacle to stop her, but she ducked under it with fluid ease and kept moving. "The weight distribution is all wrong," someone was saying. "If we try to lift from that angle, the whole thing will shift and crush them." Tara reached the fallen support beam. It was massive, easily weighing 15, maybe 20 tons. Industrial-grade Dura steel, designed to hold entire ships in place during loading operations. She looked at it for exactly 2 seconds, assessing. Then she grabbed it. I am not using metaphor here. I am not exaggerating for dramatic effect. I mean that this tiny human female, who barely came up to my chest, who looked like a strong breeze might carry her away, wrapped her small hands around a support beam that should have required industrial machinery to move. And she lifted it. The metal groaned. Not from strain, but from the sudden shift in weight distribution. Tara's arms tensed, muscles becoming visible under her skin in a way I had never seen in any species. Her feet, planted wide, seemed to sink slightly into the deck plating from the sheer force she was exerting downward to counterbalance the weight. "Move them," she shouted, her voice tight but controlled. "I can't hold this forever." For a moment, nobody moved. We were all frozen, our brains trying to process what our eyes were showing us. It was physically impossible. The math did not work. The biology did not work. Nothing about what we were seeing made any sense whatsoever. "Move," Tara said again, and this time there was an edge to her voice that snapped us out of our shock. Ulmer surged forward, his tentacles wrapping around Naya and pulling her free. 2 other responders grabbed Gorth, dragging his massive bulk out from under the beam. I found myself running forward, reaching for Pip, my hands shaking as I scooped up the small being. "Clear," Ulmer shouted. Tara set the beam down, not dropped it, not let it fall. She set it down, carefully, controlling its descent so it would not cause another collapse. Then she straightened up, rolled her shoulders once, and turned to face us. Her forehead was damp with sweat. Her breathing was slightly elevated. But she was smiling that same warm, friendly smile from before. "Is everyone okay?" she asked, brushing dust off her hands. "Anyone else need help?" I stared at her. We all stared at her. Dolvin's 4 eyes were blinking out of sequence, a sure sign of severe cognitive distress. Ulmer's tentacles had gone completely limp, hanging at his sides like dead weight. Nia, gasping for breath but alive, looked up at the human with something approaching religious awe. "What are you?" I whispered. And I did not care that it was probably the rudest thing I had ever said to a diplomatic guest. Tara's smile widened just a fraction, and for the first time, I noticed her teeth. Flat in front, sure, but sharp in back. Predator teeth. How had I missed that before? "I'm just a person from Earth," she said simply. "We all grow up lifting heavy things. It's kind of necessary when you live where we do." Where they lived. I realized, standing there in that ruined docking bay, surrounded by impossible physics and shattered assumptions, that I knew absolutely nothing about Earth. Nothing about humans. Nothing about what we had just invited to the negotiating table. And judging by the look in Tara's eyes, the look that was patient and kind, but also deeply, fundamentally alien in a way I was only now beginning to understand. That ignorance might be the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. I spent the next hour in my quarters, staring at my data terminal like it might suddenly start making sense. It did not. "Earth," I muttered, scrolling through the planetary database. "Let me see what kind of nightmare you actually are." The numbers appeared on my screen, and I had to read them 3 times before I accepted they were not some kind of clerical error. Gravitational force, 9.8 meters per second squared. I converted it to standard units and felt my stomach drop. 12 times the gravity of Kelthar, my homeworld. 12 times what the Frill experienced. 12 times what most species in the known galaxy considered survivable for long-term habitation. "That is a crushing death trap," I said aloud to my empty room. But it got worse. So much worse. Atmospheric composition, 21% oxygen. I had to look that up because I could not believe it. That was a fire hazard. That was an explosive waiting to happen. Most civilized worlds kept oxygen levels between 8 and 12%. Anything higher, and you risked spontaneous combustion from the simplest spark. Surface temperature range, -89 to 58 degrees. In Celsius. That range alone would kill most species I knew. The cold end would freeze your fluid solid. The hot end would cook you from the inside out. Weather patterns included something called hurricanes. Rotating storm systems with wind speeds exceeding 300 kilometers per hour. Tornadoes. Lightning strikes that carried billions of volts. Phenomena called wildfires that consumed entire regions. They named their planet Dirt, I realized, reading the etymology. They literally call their world Dirt, and it is trying to kill them every single day. A chime at my door interrupted my existential crisis. "Vex, are you in there?" It was Dolvin's voice, tight with stress. "We have another situation." Of course we did. because apparently today was the day the universe decided to test exactly how much insanity I could handle before my brain simply gave up. I opened the door to find Dolvin, his face showing that pale blue color that indicated fear. Fire in the agricultural dome. It spread to the oxygen generation sector. Temperature readings are catastrophic. The station's emergency systems were blaring again as we ran through the corridors. I could smell the smoke before we even reached the affected area, acrid and thick, burning my throat. The agricultural dome was a separate section, connected by a sealed corridor to the main station. It maintained higher oxygen levels to support the various plant species that fed the station population. If fire had reached the generation sector, where pure oxygen was processed, we were looking at an inferno that would burn hot enough to melt hull plating. Emergency bulkheads had already sealed, trapping anyone inside. Through the reinforced viewing window, I could see flames. Not normal flames. These were white-hot, so bright they hurt to look at directly. The temperature gauge on the wall read 600 degrees Celsius. There are 3 beings trapped in there, Ulmer was saying, his voice cracking. Nia, Gorth, and Pip. They went in to check on the hydroponic systems right before the fire started. The emergency suits are rated to 400 degrees maximum. We send anyone in there and they will die before they reach the survivors. How long do they have? Dolvin asked. Minutes. Maybe 5 if they found a pocket of cooler air. The bulkhead seals are already beginning to warp from the heat. I looked through the window again and felt hopeless. This was physics. This was chemistry. This was the simple, brutal reality that carbon-based life could not survive temperatures hot enough to liquefy lead. I'll go. We all turned. Tara stood behind us, still covered in dust from the docking bay collapse. She had not even changed clothes. You cannot, I said flatly. The heat will kill you in seconds. Probably not, she said. And she was already moving toward the emergency suit locker. She pulled out the thermal gear, examined it for exactly 2 seconds, and then set it aside. That will just slow me down. Tara, listen to me. I grabbed her shoulder, forcing her to look at me. I just read about your world. I know Earth is harsh, but this is 600 degrees. Your flesh will cook, your blood will boil. This is not about being tough. This is about basic biology. She looked at my hand on her shoulder, then up at my face. Those predator eyes locked onto mine, and I saw something in them that made my survival instincts scream. Vex, she said gently. My ancestors walked through firestorms to hunt prey. We learned to control fire before we invented the wheel. Our bodies adapted to survive burns that would kill most species because on Earth, if you could not handle heat, you did not get to pass on your genes. She reached up and removed my hand from her shoulder. Not roughly, but with a grip strength that I now understood could crush Durasteel. I appreciate your concern, she continued. But those people do not have time for me to explain human thermophysiology. So I am going in, and I am bringing them out. You can time me if you want. She turned to the bulkhead controls. How do I open this? Ulmer opened the bulkhead with shaking tentacles, and the heat that rolled out hit me like a physical blow. I staggered back, my skin already blistering from just the radiant temperature. Dolvin collapsed entirely, his respiratory system shutting down in self-defense. Tara walked into the flames. Just walked in, like she was taking an evening stroll through a park. The inferno swallowed her whole, and for a horrible moment, I thought we had just witnessed a suicide. Then, through the wavering heat distortion and the white-hot flames, I saw her moving, purposeful, focused. Someone get medical ready, I croaked, my throat raw from the superheated air. And fire suppression. Full systems. 3 minutes and 42 seconds. That was how long she was inside. I know because I counted every single second, convinced each one would be the last before we found nothing but charred remains. When the bulkhead opened again, Tara emerged carrying Gorth over one shoulder. The Vulcan weighed at least 300 kilograms, and she carried him like he was a sack of grain. Nia was tucked under her other arm, unconscious but breathing. Pip clung to Tara's back, tiny hands gripping her shirt. Tara's skin was red, angry, blistered red in places like a bad sunburn. Her clothes were singed, smoking at the edges. Her hair had scorch marks. But she was walking. She was conscious. She was alive. Medical now, she said, setting Gorth down gently. Nia has smoke inhalation. Pip might have a broken arm. Gorth's hide is cracked, but he should recover. What about you? Lena, a human medical officer I had not even realized was stationed here, rushed forward with a scanner. I'm fine, Tara said, waving her off. Just need some water and maybe some burn gel. Nothing serious. Nothing serious. She had just walked through 600-degree flames and called it nothing serious. That was when the alarms changed. A different sound, sharper, more urgent, the kind that meant violence was coming. All personnel, hostile boarding detected. Repeat, hostile boarding detected. Draxian raiders have breached Docking Bay 8. Security teams respond immediately. Draxian. That single word made everyone freeze. Draxian pirates were not thieves. They were killers. They wore military-grade exoskeletons that multiplied their already considerable strength by a factor of 10. They carried plasma weaponry that could cut through hull plating. They took no prisoners, left no survivors, and their reputation across 12 sectors was built on mountains of corpses. How many? Ulmer demanded into his communicator. Scans show 15, maybe 20. They are moving fast, cutting through bulkheads. They will reach the residential areas in 10 minutes. I felt cold despite the lingering heat from the fire. 15. Draxian raiders could slaughter everyone on this station. Our security forces were equipped for crowd control and minor disputes, not military assault. Evacuate the civilians to the core bunkers, Dolvin ordered, having recovered enough to stand. Seal every bulkhead between here and their position. Maybe we can slow them down long enough for a distress signal to reach the nearest patrol. Or I could go talk to them, Tara said. We all looked at her like she had lost her mind. Talk to them? I said. Tara, these are Draxian raiders. They do not talk. They do not negotiate. They kill everything they encounter because that is what they do. It is their culture, their purpose, their entire existence. Then I will not talk for long, she replied, and started walking toward Docking Bay 8. Tara, wait. I ran after her, grabbing her arm again. I seemed to be making a habit of that. You cannot fight them. Yes, you are strong. Yes, you are durable. I understand that now. But they have weapons. They have armor. They have numbers. She stopped and turned to face me fully. When she smiled this time, it was different. Not warm. Not friendly. It was the smile of something that had teeth and knew how to use them. Vex, she said softly. Do you know what the apex predator of Earth is? I shook my head, suddenly very aware that I was standing extremely close to something dangerous. We are, Tara said. Humans. We climbed to the top of the food chain on a planet that was actively trying to kill us every single day. We did not do that by running away. She pulled her arm free from my grip. Now, if you will excuse me, I have pirates to handle. You should probably stay back. This might get messy. I followed anyway. Of course I followed. I am an idiot, apparently. But I had to see this. Had to know if humans were really what I was beginning to suspect they were. We reached Docking Bay 8 to find Ulmer's security team already pinned down. Plasma bolts screamed through the air, melting holes in bulkheads. The Draxian raiders moved like machines, their exoskeletons making each step a thunderous boom against the deck plating. Havrik, their captain, stood at the center. He was massive, even by Draxian standards. His exoskeleton painted with kill marks that covered every centimeter of available surface. 2 meters of armored murder with plasma cannons mounted on both arms. This station now belongs to the Draxian Freehold, he roared. Surrender and your deaths will be quick. Tara walked into the middle of the firefight. Plasma bolts flew past her head. She did not flinch, did not duck, just kept walking with that same purposeful stride until she stood 5 meters from Havrik. Hi there, she said cheerfully. I am Tara. I need you and your friends to leave. Right now. Havrik stared at her. Then he started laughing, a sound like grinding metal. A human? They sent a tiny human to negotiate? He raised one plasma cannon, pointing it directly at her face. I have heard of your kind. Weak, soft, you barely qualify as sentient. That is a common misconception, Tara said. Want to know something interesting about humans? I want to watch you burn. Havrik pulled the trigger. The plasma bolt hit Tara square in the chest at point-blank range. The temperature of a plasma discharge is approximately 15,000 degrees. Hot enough to vaporize flesh, bone, metal, almost anything organic. Tara staggered back 3 steps. Smoke rose from her shirt, which had a hole burned clean through. The skin underneath was charred, blackened, and I could see bone in places. She should have been dead. Should have been a pile of ash. Instead, she looked down at the wound, touched it gingerly, and winced. Okay, she said, her voice tight with pain. That actually hurt. Now I am annoyed. What happened next happened so fast that my brain could barely track it. Tara moved, and suddenly she was not where she had been. She crossed 5 meters in less than a second, faster than any being her size should have been able to move. Her fist hit Havrik's exoskeleton chest plate. The armor, designed to withstand military-grade explosives, crumpled like paper. The impact sent Havrik flying backward into 2 of his crew, and all 3 went down in a tangle of metal and limbs. A raider to her left opened fire. Tara caught his arm, the one with the plasma cannon, and twisted. The exoskeleton joint shrieked and snapped. She used the raider's own weapon to shoot 3 others before discarding him like trash. She's unarmed. Bront, the pirate lieutenant, shouted, "Focus fire! Bring her down!" 6 plasma cannons fired simultaneously. Tara dove, rolled, came up running. She grabbed a piece of debris, a chunk of deck plating weighing maybe 50 kilograms, and threw it like a discus. It hit Bront with enough force to crush his exoskeleton and pin him to the wall. The fight lasted 2 minutes. When it ended, 15 Draxian raiders lay unconscious or incapacitated. Their armor was ruined, their weapons scattered. And Tara stood in the center of it all, breathing hard, burned and bleeding, but very much alive. "Medical," she called out. "These raiders need attention. Some of them have broken bones." I walked forward on shaking legs. How? How are you still standing? The plasma, the wound, you should be dead. Tara looked down at the hole in her chest. Oh, this? Yeah, it is pretty bad. Human bodies have redundant systems, though. Takes more than one hit to shut us down completely. Evolution, you know. When everything on your planet is trying to eat you, you learn to keep fighting even when you are injured. But the strength, the speed, lifting that beam, surviving the fire, all of it. My voice was rising, panic edging in. What are you? Tara sat down heavily, wincing as Lena rushed over with medical supplies. I told you, I am human. We come from a planet with 12 times the gravity you are used to. Our muscles, our bones, our entire skeletal structure developed under crushing weight. We breathe an atmosphere so rich in oxygen that our cells produce energy at rates you would consider impossible. We survive temperature extremes that would kill most life. She paused while Lena applied something to her burns. Earth made us this way, she continued quietly. Every single day was a fight to survive. Predators with claws and fangs, weather that could freeze or burn, gravity that crushed, diseases that adapted as fast as we did. We did not choose to be this resilient. We had to be, or we would have gone extinct millions of years ago. Dolvin appeared beside me. Then why? Why hide it? Why pretend to be weak? Tara looked up at us, and her expression softened. The predator edge faded, replaced by something genuinely sad. Because strength without control is just violence, she said. Because fear makes terrible friends. When humans first left Earth and met other species, we realized something important. We were different, dangerously different. If we showed up flexing our muscles, talking about how strong we were, how durable, how we evolved as apex predators, what do you think would have happened? I thought about it, really thought about it. We would have seen you as threats, as conquerors. Exactly, Tara nodded. And you would have been right too. History is full of strong species dominating weaker ones. We did not want that. We did not travel to the stars to become the bullies of the galaxy. We wanted friends, partners, equals, even if biology says otherwise. She stood up slowly, Lena supporting her. So we downplay. We act soft. We let people underestimate us. We use our strength only when necessary, to protect, never to intimidate. Because the real measure of power is not how much force you can apply, but how much restraint you can show. The other aliens who had been hiding during the fight began emerging. Nia approached carefully, her scales still pale. You saved us. 3 times today. Why? Because that is what decent people do, Tara said simply. Strength means responsibility. My planet made me this way, but I get to choose what I do with it. Haverick groaned from where he lay pinned. Tara walked over, checked his injuries, and actually adjusted his position to make him more comfortable. The raider who moments ago had tried to kill her. Medical will fix you up, she told him. Then station security will process you properly. But you will live. Everyone here will live. I understood then. Truly understood. Humans were not hiding weakness. They were hiding overwhelming power behind gentleness. They were choosing kindness when they could have chosen domination. The trade negotiations, Dolvin said suddenly. Do we still want to proceed? Tara grinned. And this time it was that warm, friendly smile from the beginning. I hope so. Earth has a lot to offer, and we really do want to be friends. I looked at this small, impossible, terrifying, wonderful being. I think the Keltheran Collective would very much like to be friends with humanity. Good, Tara said. Just remember, we are stronger than we look, but we are also kinder than we need to be. That is the part that matters most. And watching her help her former enemies while bleeding from a plasma wound, I believed her.